What's up guys, Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp beginner tutorial for you. So in today's video we're going to talk about how to take an image file and create a scaled floor plan from that image. So you can use this to set scale of a lot of different things, but in this case this is really helpful if you have like a picture of a floor plan you want to create or something like that that doesn't necessarily start off to scale in SketchUp. So I will make the example file available so that you can download and follow along at TheSketchUpEssentials.com/floorplan. So go download that file and then I'll teach you how to bring it in and start creating those plans. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. All right, so when you download this file, it's going to come in. It's basically going to be a JPEG image. And what we need to do with our JPEG image is we need to bring it into SketchUp. And so I just want to bring it in. This is just a quick plan that I created to give us kind of an idea to let us start practicing with this. But what we need to do is get it into SketchUp so we can start modeling this building. Because you can see how there's a lot of places where there aren't dimensions and other pieces of information, and it would be really helpful to use this image as a reference for our modeling. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to start by importing the image. And so what you want to do is you want to go to File, Import, and you want to go find your image that you want to bring in. And so what you want to do to find images is you can click the little drop down here and you can either find the kind of image that you have in here, or you can just go to all supported types or all supported image types. And so what we want to do is we want to bring this image in as an actual image, right? Not as a texture or a match photo. So what you want to do is you want to select the image that you want to bring in, make sure the box for use, or the little dial for use image as image, has been selected, and then click on import. So when you do that, what you're going to notice is you're going to notice that this is going to follow your mouse around inside of SketchUp, right? And so what we want to do is we want to click in order to bring it in. Notice how when you move your mouse right here, it's going to adjust the size that this gets brought in. So we could try to like approximate the right size in here, but it would really kind of be a waste of our time because we'd just be guessing. So what we want to do instead is just click. It doesn't really matter where you click at this point. Quick tip, if this comes in really blurry, that may be because you don't have the maximum texture size checked. And so that's something that you can adjust in your preferences. So in your preferences under OpenGL, there's an option here for use maximum texture size. If you don't check that box and you try to import something in, and I don't think it's going to affect this one, but if you don't check that box, this may come in really blurry. So before you import this, just make sure that you have this checked. Notice that this does say that you may experience a significant slowdown. That's because a lot of textures can get brought in as like high resolution images, and if they're like super high resolution images, they really slow down SketchUp. So this is unchecked by default, but if you're getting that really blurry image, you might not have a choice but to use the maximum texture size. Just be careful of the size of image files you're bringing in if you're creating custom textures and other things like that, so you don't have to worry about crashing SketchUp. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And so the first thing we need to do is set this to scale, right? Because if we come in here and let's say we wanted to model this door, right now if I was to draw a line from here to here, notice how this tells me my length is 4 inches, right? That's because this image isn't set to the proper scale. And so what we want to do is we want to scale this image. And so usually what I do, because I don't want to accidentally rescale anything else, the first thing I do is notice how this gets brought in just as an image. You can't click into it. And so usually what I do is I right click on it and I explode it. So when I explode it, that's going to take this from being an image that's kind of packaged together to just a face with this texture applied to it. And then I'm going to double click in order to select the face and all the edges, right click, and I'm going to make this a group. And so the reason I made this a group is because now I can double click inside of the group and just scale the stuff inside of my group. So notice how I get this bounding box indicating that I'm now inside of a group. And so what I want to do is I want to use the tape measure tool in order to scale this image. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to select the option for the tape measure tool right here. What we want to do is we want to set a known distance to scale. So for example, you could take this door and use the size of the door to set our model to scale, or you could also use something like this wall over here, because we know this wall has a length of 13 feet. And so what I want to do is I want to come in here and I just want to find a point on this edge. So I'm just going to single click on this edge. Then I'm going to move my mouse down and I'm going to find the other end of this line. So in this case, this central line right here. So we're going to go with this point and we're going to click again. So notice how that gave me a length in the lower right hand corner, and it kind of went away, but it gave me a length of something that wasn't right. Well, what we want to do is we want to type in the length that we know this is going to be. So again, notice you don't click on anything else or anything like that. You just click these 2 points, then you immediately type in 13 feet or whatever the length is and hit the enter key. What that's going to do is that's going to ask us if we want to resize the active group or component. In this case, we're going to say yes. And so this is why we put this in a group, so that only the stuff inside of the group is going to get resized. So we're going to say yes. Well, notice how this immediately gets a lot bigger, right? So now this is a way bigger image. And so the first thing you need to do is go check a couple of these dimensions to make sure this got scaled properly. So we can use the tape measure tool to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click from this point right here to this point right here. And notice how the distance on my tape measure tool is 13 feet. So this has been scaled properly. And I usually like to check a couple different dimensions. So for example, this door is 3 feet wide. Well, we'll just check this one as well using the tape measure tool. So we're just going to click, move our mouse, and this is 3 feet wide as well. So what we've done is we've now taken this image and we've scaled it so we can start modeling on top of it. And so usually what I do at this point is I like to click outside of the group. I don't really want to model the lines inside of the group. You could do it. There's definitely a case to be made for doing it that way. I like to just model on top of this just so that I'm not messing around with the actual geometry of my image, because if I lose it, then I could have a little bit of a problem. So I usually click out of this and then I just start modeling. And so what I'm going to do to start is I'm just going to pick a corner. So in this case, this corner. I'm going to single click, and then I'm going to move my mouse in this direction. And so I know, based on this dimension line right here, or dimension measurement, that this is 31 foot 4 inches. So anytime I have that, I prefer to type in the value. So I'm going to type in 31 foot 4 inches and hit the enter key. So now I've drawn a line to this corner. Well, now I'm going to do the same thing to draw a line to this corner. So 57 feet, 10.5 inches, and hit the enter key. So basically what I'm doing is I'm roughing out the size of my model. So see how I'm just coming in here and just drawing lines that are the length of the dimensions in here? So for this one, I could even move my mouse along the green axis and hold the shift key to lock that inference. And then I can just click over here and notice how that line, because it's locked to the green axis, is going to be the same length over here. And then I'm going to click. So when I click, notice how what that does is that gives me this weird like flashing face in here, right? The reason this face is flashing is because I have two faces occupying the same space inside of SketchUp. We're not going to worry too much about this right now because our final product is going to have this image hidden anyway, so the flashing is not that big of a deal, but it can get a little bit annoying, so you can always come in here and just delete out the face if you want to. Anytime you draw over one of these edges, it'll put the face back in here anyway. But now, what I want to do is I want to give my exterior wall some thickness. And so if I come in here and I measure my exterior wall, you can see how it has a thickness of 6 inches. And so I could come in here and just model each one of these individually, right? I could draw an edge here, 6 inches, draw an edge across here, and just draw them all manually, but that's going to be a little bit time consuming. What I want to do instead is I just want to select this whole thing, tap the F key, that's the offset tool, and then single click, move my mouse, and then type a value of 6 and hit the enter key. And so now, if we hide our image, you can see how what this has done is this has offset this whole thing in by 6 inches. So now I have my exterior wall. So later on, when we extrude this, we can extrude just our exterior wall. So now, let's go through and let's add some more walls. So we'll do that first, and then we'll talk about doors and windows. So this one, for example, I'm going to delete this face out, just so we're not getting the flashing. This one, for example, if I use my tape measure tool, you can see how this has a length of about 6 feet. So I'm just going to draw a line from this corner, 6 feet. Just by typing in a value of 6 feet. And then I'm just going to move my mouse over here. Well, what that's going to do is that's going to draw a face in like this. And so what I want to do now is you could come in here and offset this whole thing inward to the length of that wall. So I could use the offset tool to offset the whole thing in, but notice how I get these extra pieces that I have to clean up if I do that. What I want to do instead is I just want to select these two pieces just by doing a shift click. Then I'm just going to tap the F key, single click, and offset this in 4 inches. So now all that did is that offset these two edges in. So this one and this one by 4 inches. I can delete out this extra face in here. So now if I hide this, you can see how that gave me my wall right here. And all we're going to do is we're just going to keep roughing all of these walls out. So for this one, for example, I'm going to draw a line over here, and I can see how this is about 5 foot 2 inches. So I'm just going to type in 5 foot 2 and hit the enter key. I'm going to delete this face out. I'm going to do the same thing. And so for this one, I can go ahead and I can draw a 7 foot 6 inch line over here. And in this case, I would offset these out using the offset tool by 4 inches. So notice how I'm able to draw that wall in here really quickly. And so for our stair, we'll just find this point right here. Draw a line across. Looks like about 5 foot 10 inches. We'll do the same thing where we offset these in 4 inches. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to rough out the rest of the walls using this process, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at how we can model out the openings for our doors and windows. Alright, so now if we take a look at this, you can see how we have all of our walls in here. And if we wanted to, we could go through and we could start push-pulling them up, right, in order to create our 3D shape. However, what I like to do before I start extruding my walls up is I like to block out all of my openings first, because it's a lot easier to do when this is flat and you can see them on your plan. And so to do this, I'm just going to unhide my drawing again. All I do is I just find the opening and then I just block it out. So in this case, for example, this is a 3 foot wide opening. So all I'm doing is I'm just drawing lines across the space where that door would be. So notice how what this is doing, and I'm going to draw a 3 foot line here. Notice what this is doing, if I hide this again, is this is basically splitting these walls up. So now if I extrude them up like this, the openings aren't going to extrude up. And what that allows us to do is that allows us to model those doors and windows as we're going. So I'm going to go back around and I'm going to block out all of my door and window openings in this model just by drawing the rough openings right here. So for these windows, for example, I'm just going to come in here, I'm going to delete this out, and actually I'm going to delete this face. It'll just heal back in when I draw across this. So now I have an edge here. I'm just going to draw an edge right here. So in the case of these windows, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I guess it's not cheating as much as using smart modeling practices, but what I want to do is I want to draw a little guide edge right here. It's going to be about 8 inches long because that's the spacing between the windows. And then I can just select this and then use the move tool in copy mode. So select M, click. Remember to tap Control to go into copy mode and click here to set my first window. And then I'm going to type in *2 and hit the enter key. And basically what I did, if you go back to the last video in this series, is I used an array to create a copy of this right here. So I was able to copy this geometry across, so now these are all blocked out. And then I'm just going to keep doing this. until we've got all of our openings blocked out. All right, so now let's go ahead and hide our image again. So I'm just going to right click on it and click on hide. Then I'm going to delete out these extra faces that we have in here so that we can look at just our floor plan. And so we've got all of our openings blocked out, right? I've got my doors, my windows, everything like that. Well, what I want to do now is I want to start extruding this to 3D. And so one thing I usually recommend is there are definitely cases where your exterior walls need to be a different line weight than your interior walls. So I usually like to put those in different groups. So you don't have to do this, but you definitely can. So I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to double click on my exterior walls. So just double click, and I'm just going to do a shift double click and start picking up all this geometry. And I'm going to put these in 2 separate groups. And again, you don't have to do this. Just remember that once you go to 3D, if you decide that you want your walls, exterior and interior, to be in different groups, it's pretty much impossible to do because you've created so much geometry that it's just not manageable. So I'm just going to pick up all of this stuff. I'm going to right click and I'm going to put that in a group. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my interiors. So I'll just go to my top view, and I'll just select all of this interior geometry and I'll put that in a group as well. So now I have groups for my exterior and interior walls. Well, now let's go to 3D. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to double click inside of this group. And we're just going to use the push pull tool to extrude this up. And you might want to go ahead and triple click, right click, and reverse your faces so that you have the proper face facing upward. But now I'm just going to use the push-pull tool to extrude this up. So I'm going to push-pull this up, and we're going to go ahead and call this, we'll call it 11 feet for right now, just for our overall height. And so one trick that we have about this is that we can double-click in order to repeat the last movement that we did. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to go through and double-click, and I want to extrude all of my wall pieces up. You can also click and then mouse over this and click like this, but it's just faster to double click. Basically, the tool remembers the last distance that you used it for. And so what I've done here is I've basically roughed this out where I can see where my full height walls are and then my doors and windows. And then from there, we just need to rough out these openings for our doors and windows. And so a lot of the time, what I do in a case like this is I want to fill in this space above where my door would be. Well, I know that my door opening is going to have a height of 7 feet. And so usually what I'll do is I'll just select this base piece and I'll use the move tool in copy mode to create a copy up 7 feet. So I just select it, M, single click, and remember to tap Control in order to do that. And then I can type a value of 7 feet. And so what that does is that creates a copy of this geometry 7 feet high. Well, then I can just come in here and just extrude this to the top of my wall. So notice how I now have my door opening in here. So notice how I now have my door opening in here in the proper position. And so I usually do the same thing with my windows, but with a little bit of a change. So for my windows, I'll go ahead and I'll just push pull this up to a height of maybe like 2 foot 6 inches, right? Because my window is going to be above the ground. You can set that height to whatever you want. Well, then I would just do the same thing. I'm just going to select this geometry, use the move tool in copy mode. I'm just going to create a copy that aligns with the top of my window. Then I can use the push-pull tool to extrude this the rest of the way. So alternatively, you could also, if you wanted to, just push-pull this to this height. You could just draw a line up the size of your window and then just draw a box in here. So you could definitely do that, but it's just going to be more time consuming and you're going to have more stuff that you have to delete, right? Because these extra faces get put in here. So that's why I use the move tool in copy mode method. You don't have to do it that way, but I find that that's the method that really works the best for me. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to add the rest of my window openings and my door openings and my exterior, and then I'm going to extrude my walls up. All right, so now the last thing we can do, so we can come in here and we can use the erase tool to quickly clean up these extra lines. So to do that, I'm just going to double click in here, tap the E key, and then just drag across these lines to erase them. And notice how basically everything that you drag a line over, or drag the tool over, gets erased. So it's really easy to come in here and get rid of these real quick. So it shouldn't take you too long to do all that cleanup. So a lot of the time I'll erase out this extra stuff at the top of my wall as well, just because it's a little bit clunky and it looks a little unclean in my modeling method. But again, I mean, it's kind of a time thing. If that's not worth doing for you, then don't do it. All right, so now if we were to come in here and unhide our floor plan, you can see how we now have a 2-scale version of this floor plan image inside of SketchUp. And now we can go through and we can start adding things like door frames and furniture and other things like that. We can definitely go further down this road. So leave a comment down below and let me know if you're interested in that. But this is a really easy way to create scaled floor plans from images inside of SketchUp. So that's where I'm going to end this video. Leave a comment below if you have a question on anything that happened in this video. If you want more in-depth instruction, make sure to check out the SketchUp Essentials course. So that's my course where I really dive deep on a lot of this stuff. So we have a start to finish interior design modeling section where we model a full house. We really get into the details of how to work in SketchUp. So if you want some more SketchUp instruction, make sure to check that out at TheSketchUpEssentials.com/course. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.